Om Namo Narayana, Om Namah Shivaya, Shivam, Shivoham, Om. Welcome to another satsang with your host, Chuck the Yogi from the Yogi Cave. Let us continue. So, let's see where I was. I think I left here, but I'm not sure. Oh yeah, 1.14. Satudirga Kala Nairantarya Satkara Asevito Dridka Lumihi. But this practice is firmly grounded only after it has been cultivated properly and for a long time, uninterruptedly. Thus the importance of practice or sadhana in yoga or martial arts, any art, any discipline, but much more so with yoga, because without that consistency, no result can come from it. It's just like blowing the fire, getting those embers to turn into a flame. So that's what it's all about. 1.15. Drishta Anushravika Vishaya Vitrishnasya Vashikara Samjña Vairagya. Dispassion is the knowledge and mastery of that yogin who is without thirst for seen, earthly, or revealed objects. So Patanjali starts to define everything because Patanjali is very good at that. He breaks everything down. He defines everything. He gives it to you very simple and straight. So starting with dispassion or vairagya, what does that mean? Knowledge and mastery of the yogin who is without thirst for seen or revealed objects. That just means that the yogi, doesn't matter whether it's visible or invisible, known or unknown, the yogi isn't thirsting for it one way or the other. He's not, oh boy, I want to be super yogi, I want to be a god, whatever, he's just chill. He's just doing what he needs to do. So that's the essence of Vairagya. 1.16. Tat Param Purusha Kyatar Guna Vaitrishnya. The superior form of this dispassion or Vairagya is the non-thirsting for the primary constituents of nature which result from the vision of self. So Patanjali will get a bit deeper into this notion of primary constituents of nature, but when he's talking about that, he's also alluding to the Samkhya philosophy, which is the foundation of the Sanatana Dharma, the eternal natural way. But definitely it's the foundation of this yoga in particular, and I would say all yoga and all disciplines within the Sanatana Dharma. It's the most ancient and the most legendarily developed by Kapil Muni, or the great sage of ancient times. But we're not going to get too deep into that, but just to let you know that Patanjali is already assuming that you know all these things, so he's not even bothering with explaining this, so that's where I come in. 1.17. Vitarka Vichara Ananda Asmita Rupa Anugamat Samprajñataha. The ecstasy out of the state of restriction is cognitive, object-oriented by being connected with the forms of cogitation, reflection, joy, or I-amness. So there's two types of samadhi, right? There's samadhi that needs a prop or an object in order to sustain itself, and then there's a samadhi without that. So somewhere along the lines of the concepts of savikalpa and nirvikalpa samadhi, there's all sorts of other terms to explain that, but all you need to know is that there's a samadhi that you achieve with props first, and then eventually you let the training wheels go and you just soar. So eventually you don't need props at all, but for the most part, props are required in the beginning, like practice wheels. And props can be anything. It can be an image, It can be a yantra, it can be a mantra, it can be this, it can be that. An idea in the mind, an image in the mind, whatever. Clump of clay, doesn't matter. As long as that's the object of your samadhi or your practice to achieve that samadhi. So that's what he's talking about. Anyway, 1.18 Virama Pratyaya Avyasa Purvaha Samskara Sheshonyaha. The other type of ecstasy has a residuum, the subliminal activators. It follows the former cognitive ecstasy upon the practice of the presented idea of cessation. Wow, that's a mouthful right there. Okay, so let's start with the type of ecstasy that has a residual of subliminal activators. That just means that there's always, it's almost like when you go in the garden and you rip out some weeds, right? If you don't go real deep and rip out all those roots, those weeds are going to pop up again. Anybody that's gardened knows what I'm talking about. And it's just like that with what he calls subliminal activators. It's the seeds of future karmas. And you can suppress them, you can sublimate them, but they're still there. And it's only after a certain achievement in terms of samadhi that these seeds can be ripped out, right? So that they don't bloom again. So that's what he's talking about. And so the idea of it follows the former cognitive ecstasy upon the practice of the presented idea of cessation. That's a very ridiculously technical term, kind of explaining that the idea of cessation is an idea that you work on until you achieve that cessation, right? It's a means to an end. So I'm not going to get too deep into that because these technical terms, well, it's really easy to get all caught up in them and get all tangled in them. So we're going to keep things short and sweet. Anyway, 1.19 Bhava Pratyayo Videha Prakriti Layanam. The ecstasy of those who have merged with the world ground and those who are bodiless is due to the persistence of the presented idea of becoming. Okay, so what Patanjali is trying to allude to this in regards to this sutra is that merging with the world ground, merging with the field or the self or whatever you want to call it, right, is due to the persistent idea of becoming. So it's still kind of a prop to some extent, right? Even if you're allowing yourself to focus on the self with a capital S, it's still focused on this idea of becoming. There's still this process going on. So it's not the end, right? But what he's trying to say is that no matter how big the prop is, it's still a prop, right? Okay. 1.20 Shraddha Virya Smriti Samadhi Prajna Purvaka Itarisha. The ecstasies of others, these yogins whose path is described in 1.18, is preceded by faith, energy, mindfulness, ecstasy, and supercognition. So with faith or a positive attitude towards the yogic way of life, as Vyasa observes, which is a sage, protects the yogi like a caring mother. Number 2, the energy or the vitality arising from faith. Number 3, mindfulness, or the practice of concentration meditation. Number 4, ecstasy or samadhi, by which is made cognitive ecstasy or samprajñata samadhi. And supracognition, number 5, or gnosis, it is the kind of ecstatic knowledge which is conductive to self-realization. So there's certain precedents, there's certain requirements or pre-requirements that the yogi avails himself on in order to achieve these higher states, right? And that has to do with faith, energy, mindfulness, samadhi, and supercognition. And you can say that one leads to the other. Faith gives you the energy in order to achieve the mindfulness that leads you to samadhi and to uber samadhi. Let's put it that way. Alright, so that's quite a few mouthfuls. So I'm going to leave it there because Anybody who gets too deep too fast into this will have an aneurysm, I swear. Alright. Om Namo Narayana. Om Namah Shivaya. Shiva Om. Shiva Om. Om. Jai. Jai Mahakal. Till next time.